Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our last session of the day. Actually, it's the hospitality, the gig economy session. So this is a really important session. We've kind of been talking about this one enough for a while because we were wondering whether the timing of it would cause us some issue around the conversation. Because whilst we're still on track with the roadmap, there's obviously a lot of things still to consider. And the gig economy and kind of the nighttime economy, they've been extremely hard hit. But one look around city centre, so I'm based in Manchester city centre in Ancoats, one look around my neighbourhood just shows how much pent-up demand there is. We've all read the news stories in the newspapers about there being shortages of staff, and so we've invited this really great panel here today that I'll ask in a second to introduce themselves, to talk to us about the sector, the opportunity sector, and kind of what makes the sector so great and why we need to give it so much attention to nurture it in such a way that it can grow even better than what it was before. So shall we start with you, Sean, to give us a brief introduction to who you are and kind of what brings you here?
Yeah, hello everyone. Thanks, Sarah. So I'm the Chief Exec of Manchester Central, which most people will be aware of. We've recently, I thought we're just finishing off the final bits of taking down the Nightingale Hospital and returning it to an events venue, hopefully in preparation for some activity kicking off in July this year. But traditionally, you know, we're staging 220, 250 events a year, bringing anywhere between 500,000 and just over that number of business visitors and some leisure, but predominantly business visitors into the city, and staging anything from, you know, traditional conferences, exhibitions, the sort of stuff that this would be in real life, but we've all gone online with recently. Right through to more kind of consumer events, you know, parties, and other activities as well. So, you know, we rely on the hospitality community in Manchester pretty extensively, actually. And as we're currently in the midst of plotting our return, you know, the way that we gear up again, having been out of action pretty much for, you know, the best part of what will probably be there or thereabouts about 18 months. Yeah, it's a big step to go from that back up to, you know, running a banquet for 1,000 people, which we've got lined up within just a few weeks. And just as a bonus for people watching, my son's probably about to start his drumming lessons, so we might have some accompaniment to our wonderful session this afternoon. But anyway, that's me.
That's a first for me. We've had
all drums. Well, you know, it started off with my daughter, you know, wanting to do saxophone, and then Charlie thought he'd get his own back. But anyway, that was just after he came home with a trombone one day. But anyway, over to you.
Thank you very much for that. Lorna, do you want to go next?
Yes, hi, I'm Lorna Davidson. I'm the CEO of Red Wigwam, and we do everything about people. So we're about putting people into work, but we do it in a very different way. So we're an online portal, a little bit like a dating site. So we match hirers and workers from anything from a 15-minute task to a full-time job. Not a surprise, we've had an interest in COVID, like most people. So we did a lot in hospitality, and of course that closed down very quickly. And we pivoted a little bit, and we now do a lot in logistics, so pick and pack, warehousing work, not a big surprise, but are ready to support hospitality opening back up again and trying to find the right staff and great staff to make sure that we can support it correctly.
Thank you. Over to you, Sasha.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name's Sasha Lord. I'm the co-founder of both Park House Project, also the Nighttime Economy Advisor for Greater Manchester. Feeling pleasantly positive for once. I think I'm starting to see light at the end of the tunnel. You know, Sean's talking about ramping up to his banquet. We announced 6 shows this morning for Warehouse Project, the opening season. It's gone down very, very well. Park Live sold 80,000 tickets in 78 minutes, which I'm still kind of scratching my head about, but it shows the pent-up demand. And I think also for me, more positively, I think that during COVID, a real spotlight has been put on hospitality. A real spotlight has been put on the nighttime economy. You know, you've probably heard the lines, it's the fifth biggest, the whole of the UK. In Greater Manchester alone, it employs 420,000 people. We've now lost 1 out of every 5 venues on the high street. 120,000 jobs in the UK, and there's a shortfall of 750,000 positions that need filling for reasons down to COVID, for reasons down to Brexit. So the spotlight's on hospitality, and I think it's a good time to start shouting about it, as I have been doing for the last 18 months, and I won't be giving up either.
Well, thank you very much. Please don't stop. We'll need you to be shouting during this session, for sure. Nathan, you've joined us a little bit later. Do you want to introduce yourself and what brings you here?
Hello, Nathan Clark from Broodnell Social Club and Broodnell Presents in Leeds. I run a venue in Leeds, a live music venue, 200 to 400 capacity spaces within that. Mm-hmm. I also have a number of hospitality venues, a large pub hotel, and then a couple of bars. We promote approximately 400 shows per year, from 60 capacity up to 5,000 and above. Today, I'm pretty soaking wet. I've just come through the rain. I'm currently in York. We're promoting a show at York Minster, a hybrid show. So there's going to be around 200 people watching a live show there this evening. Mm-hmm. And we're going to be streaming it out live with the How and the Hum, and working with York Minster. So we're very creative on a lot of the shows that we promote all across the UK, mm-hmm. and within our local region, and running a venue. So yeah, and across all art forms and disciplines.
Brilliant. Okay. You know, as everyone can see, a really diverse panel from every angle. So hopefully I'm really looking forward to the conversation. I think it's probably fair to say that throughout this day, and you know, probably in each one of our careers of the people that are here at the panel, we keep talking about the skills pipeline. We keep talking about how can we be as diverse and as inclusive as possible, and how can we, and then the third area is how can we shout about the North and you know it and position it in the most kind of influential light. And all of these three, and it's so funny to me because all of these three things can be answered to a large degree with the hospitality, the nighttime economy, and all of those kind of subsectors that feed into it. So I'd be really interested to hear from you. How do we encourage people to enter this part of the economy? How do we encourage them? How do we see all of the different career paths that might not be obvious in the first instance? And how do we reach out to all of the different communities that, you know, that could be feeding into it? Should I give that one to Sean? It's a big question, but I'm hoping you'll have some insights.
I was hoping you're going to give me a question on pop music, but anyway. Look, I think it's a great question, and it's one that we've been, you know, wrestling with for some time. The industry is such a diverse, eclectic mix of different roles and opportunities in the first place, you know. And I think one of its greatest assets is that, and this sort of sounds odd for a career, but the barriers to entry are relatively low, right? So it has a really potentially has a real broad appeal to a wide cross section of the community, and from an employer's perspective, you know, the people who are successful, you know, it's not anyone can qualify in that realm. You know, the attitude and aptitude says so much more. And once you've got into the space and you've realized the different range of different roles and opportunities that you can pick up, the pace at which you can progress, be given responsibility, be given opportunity is really, I would suggest, unlike any other career option. The ability to progress through the ranks relatively quickly to positions of significant responsibility is exceptional. But what comes with that responsibility, and what's really interesting for me, is just how much you're always learning and developing your skills and experience as you do it. So even though you could be relatively new into it, you could be relatively young, and you could find yourself in a position of responsibility, but it's not just that, oh, you know, I just get this job because I'm the only one here, or I'm the one who's got a manager's name, therefore I have to do it. All of a sudden, people are placing a great deal of faith upon you and your skills, and it allows you to, in your career, to mature very quickly and to gain a level of knowledge and operating capability, which will serve you really well, if your career were to carry on within the hospitality space, but also in terms of transferability. You hear so many stories in the old days of people that have progressed through different aspects of the industry, and maybe they started out as an overseas rep, or maybe at some point during their time at university or college, or after leaving school, they were waiting or working in working in a bar environment. Well, there's certain social skills, certain management skills, ability to be organized, ability to deal with situations quickly, you gain those skills really quick. And I think that then sets you up to join progressive, fun, rewarding careers with really exciting organizations. And what's really tremendous, and actually where we've suffered a little bit during the pandemic, is there's been a lack of understanding of the breadth of roles and functions that go in to supporting the broader kind of entertainment, events, hospitality industry. It isn't just about being a waiter or a server or a chef. There are so many supporting functions in the ecosystem. And the great thing about the industry, and we'll talk more about business events at some point, I'm sure, but once you're in it and you get that line of sight of how all of these different functions and roles glue together, your ability to navigate your way through that is really quite good. And I think that the other thing that I would say, and I mentioned this at the beginning, but the barriers to success, the barriers to progression are limited, and that means with the right attitude and aptitude, you can progress quickly. And I think there's some great examples, both in public companies, but also large privately owned companies, where the people leading or owning those businesses, they've literally come in from the ground floor and work their way up, either for other people and then either branching out on their own or ultimately being given that role of responsibility, or just by being able to demonstrate how hard work can equal career success. So I look at a number of large companies in our space, and you look at the people who are the leadership team of those companies, and they are people that started at the beginning of the industry. So if people are looking for diversity, if they're looking for excitement, if they're looking for responsibility, accountability, but reward and fulfillment, hospitality is ticking a lot of those boxes, I think.
Thank you for that. Sasha, your events and all of your endeavors usually include really big teams that make all of this happen. Would you agree with a couple of things that Sean has just highlighted around people kind of like starting and then working their way up, or is that, do you have the same experience?
I'd absolutely agree and echo everything that Sean's just said. I think, you talk about my large teams. There are two sectors we have to look at here. We need to look at the self-employed, the freelancers, and then our employees as well. So when you talk about the large teams, I have a team of 50 people. During the weekend of Parklife, there's 4,500 people that work there. Parklife behind the scenes, it doesn't pop up by itself. We have sound engineers, we have technicians, we have security, we have bar staff. They're the people that you don't really see. They're the people that make the shows happen. When Sean has an event on at Grand Central that I still call GMEX and always will by mistake, the freelancers come in, and sadly, so many of those have had no help since the middle of last March. And it was insulting when they were told by the Chancellor to go and retrain. And sadly, many of them have. With Parklife now, I've sold the tickets, but I do definitely have a problem in finding staff to staff those. Now, I need 1,000 security to work that. There is a huge shortage of security at the moment. On the employees, I think we have a real moment now. And by the way, just to shine a light on what Sean said, I didn't go to university. Now, I've been in hospitality and organising events for 26 years. That's all I know. Now, I don't have any qualifications or anything like that. So the sky's the limit. I think we have an opportunity coming out of this where we have to really look after our employees a lot better. I think Sorry, I've got my dog here chewing at my ankle. I think, across the whole of, this isn't a North thing, across the whole of the UK, a lot of people that work within hospitality, nightclubs, bars, they're students that come and go year in, year out, and they churn through. And sadly, because of that, I think a lot get paid minimum wage. Yeah. In Greater Manchester now, what we are saying is we are going to be one of the first living wage city regions. And that's something that only this morning I was on a call about. We want everybody in the nighttime economy to be earning a minimum of living wage. A lot of those people earn minimum wage. It gets topped up, or was being topped up, by tips. COVID has killed cash. So whereas we used to leave in a fiver or a tenner, that's dissipated now, that's gone. So we really have to put all our efforts into increase people up to minimum living wage. And I know times have been difficult and it's hard for operators, but we need to work together on this. I think transport we need to improve for them as well. It doesn't make any sense at all for me. People working in restaurants finish at 1, 2 in the morning, and the only transport facility they have left then, because the buses and the Metrolink have stopped, is they have to pay for a taxi. It's not viable for them. And when I first started advising our Mayor, Andy Burnham, I had a listening exercise with employees, and I was speaking to a lady who works in a city centre venue in Manchester. She finished at work at 4 in the morning, and then she'd walk 45 minutes back to where she lives to save £8 on a taxi. And that wasn't right for me. It just didn't sit right. So I think there's that we need to address. And then the huge one for me coming out of this was we really talking, and we are already, about people's mental health. People that work in the nighttime economy, they work long hours, they work late hours. My own staff at Warehouse Project, I'm hide behind the fact that they'll finish at 4 or 5 in the morning. Then they'll go to an after party at the mate's house because everyone else on the other side of the bar has been partying all night. They want to let their hair down, and before they know it, the next day they get up, they're up for the next shift, they've not seen any daylight, it's dark, and that's a vicious circle. It's not great for people's mental health. So I think it's good that we can now start talking about these. And Sean's right, for 18 months we've stood still, 17 for 18 months. So the worst thing we could do is to reopen again in exactly the same situation as we were. We have to address all these points.
No, and thank you so much for highlighting some of those, because I think the conversations like the ones today, I think, are so important for us to kind of highlight what needs to be changed. And I'm hoping that with having none of that for over a year, that people are actually willing to kind of reevaluate the value of it and how much they want to spend and pay. And, in whatever shape or form, we will be looking at compensating those working in that industry.
And I think it would be a shame, so wouldn't it, if we didn't improve? And I also, perhaps I'm in a bubble, but I think now that the customer has seen so much on the news and in the newspaper, on the TV and the radio and in general media, how hospitality has had the rug pulled from itself, that they're going to start supporting the independents a lot more and actually treating the staff with the respect that they're due.
Yeah, I'd love nothing but that. My brother works in the hospitality industry, so I know it well firsthand. My parents own restaurants, so it's all. Yeah, I've grown up in it. I've seen the lack of focus on it. I've seen the dismissal of it because it was a service that was on the side, and it's So I think not having that hopefully has kind of made everyone's heart grow a bit fonder. I've seen a lot of nodding from Nathan, so I'd be really interested in hearing from him and his kind of view and his region.
I think the truth is that a lot of what our jobs do as cultural and creative leaders is we add the colour to people's lives. We give that reason a lot of aspects of what people look forward to, and that is what we have all missed in the last 13, 15 months. And I think that the appreciation of that has to sit alongside not only the pay, but alongside the customer experience and the experience and payback to those working in this. And when you're talking about skills and how can we find them, I think what I think it was Sean saying earlier about the transferable skills, or it might have been Sasha. I think that, for me, those are key aspects of where we'd look at the big machine of Parklife and Sacha's. You know, without the bar staff, the operation doesn't make commercial sense of that. And I think every part of it needs to be valued, not just from us as leaders, but from the audience and how we project that and how we start to do that. So I think there's also a level of, for me, not only appreciation, but can we set standards of best practice within our organisations, but as an industry, can we start to give some level of value to organisations for best practice? Can we sit alongside it, and can we set our own charter standards that people look up to and look towards? And you know, for me, the creative sides of what we all do and the experiences that we do, they're the things that when we look at the UK, as we talk later, they're the things that really sell us as a nation. You know, they're the things that we are a soft power to the rest of the world. They're the things that when people look to Manchester particularly, but be it music, art, football or anything else, that's what they see, you know. And I think that if you're looking at those, it's really important to see the people behind it and how you do learn on the job and how we can encourage people, because exactly, you don't need a degree to go into this, and the amount of education that can be learned on the job and giving opportunities, and the opportunity there to actually just go and do it yourself and take a risk and try something isn't there in a lot of other industries. You know, you can't do that in commercial law, you can't do that in accountancy. You know, you have to follow the educational pathways. We're one of the few routes that give the opportunities for anybody walking into it with the right mindset and the right frame of mind. So I think that that's really important, and I think I agree with everything that's said before. So yes.
Thank you. So Lorna, we've been talking about, you know, from those that are hiring. So from your side, you know, again, really interested to hear what your experience has been like.
Yeah, it is really heartening to hear the rest of the panel speak, if I'm honest, because one of the things that I think is really important is you can have the best venue, you can have the best lineup, but if you have bad service when you're there as a customer, you go home and that's the thing you remember, that's the thing you talk about. So we all need really great staff to do a great job. But what we also recognise is that it's not necessarily seen as the area of the workplace that maybe treats their staff as well as they could do, because of wages, because of hours, because of how people are treated by the general public. You know, I hate to say it, but the people aren't always nice to them. So therefore, to be able to encourage great people to do this job, but to also make careers out of this job, they really need to be passionate about what they do. And I think one of the big things for me, you know, going into COVID, getting great staff is always challenging when you're giving them reduced hours, you're not giving them as much pay as they might get elsewhere, etc. But coming into COVID, where there was so much uncertainty around hospitality, I think it's actually done the reputation of the industry a huge disservice. And I think people are, you know, workers are running for the hills. So we're seeing so many more workers working in retail where they know what the hours are going to be, working in, you know, warehousing. Warehousing has taken a huge increase. And I think those are the areas that hospitality have to fight against in terms of bringing people back. And I think the thing that does make a difference is about terms and conditions, how we treat our staff, what we pay them, but also, you know, are we having fun with them? Are we creating an environment, a workspace that is good and encouraging and helping them be best? And I think the other thing is, we've talked about you don't need a, you know, a degree to do this job. No, you don't. But people do like to keep developing. So do we have the right type of training and development programs? Are we having the right conversations with our staff that they're doing a great job, but they're getting better and encouraged to go forward? One of the things we always talk to our teams about is it's a great life experience. As Sean mentioned, you pick up lots of skills very, very quickly that you don't necessarily get elsewhere. But you also get the opportunity to be exposed to different things. So one of the things I'm a great believer in, if you can line manage people, you can do most jobs in this world. And actually, working in hospitality is a great way of getting that sort of hands-on line management experience with people. So again, it's about trying to recognise the things that you can get from work that aren't just about pay, about terms and conditions, but what are the other things that we can bring to the party.
And just on that point, I think what we may have been guilty of in the past is you sell it as a great stepping stone. You start here, you gain all these skills, and then you can go off and get a proper job. And I think what we've got to then, the real opportunity in front of us now is to create those proper jobs, create the proper jobs within the industry. Many people know that they are there and they will progress into them. But for people to have pride in the fact that they've joined this industry and this sector, they are going to gain all of these great skills and experiences. But actually, then it's going to lead on to a formalized career progression and career path that will enable you to do all sorts of things. And clearly, I think this will be a great reset, and there are lots of reasons why I think the good employers are going to use this opportunity to instill all of those things that perhaps less good employers maybe overlooked in the past. And the reason I think that's going to happen is we're going to have to, because otherwise we're not going to get the people into the industry. I remember talking a while ago about what was happening in retail and how retail as an employer base has served an incredible role over the last 20, 30 years or so, because again it offers real flexibility. It has no it's got this very broad church in terms of who can work in retail, flexible hours, flexible locations, as relatively calm and organized environments most of the time. But then, of course, what we see is the retail industry going through its own turmoil for various reasons. At the same time as hospitality, looking to itself and saying, where are we going to find our employees? Where are we going to find the teams that we need? Where are we going to ensure that we can bring the next cohort, the next generation in? And I always felt that there was a great opportunity for hospitality to step in and take and pick up the role where high street retail may, in fact, start to drop away in terms of an employment choice. And if we can resolve some of the practices that perhaps aren't quite as desirable, perhaps if you're at a slightly older stage in life, or if perhaps what you're looking for is something that doesn't come with the super late nights or the super long shifts, but equally serves an incredibly valuable hospitality role, then I think that's where we should be looking, because there will be people that traditionally would have gone into retail because it suited their circumstances. They're not going to be able to do it. They're not going to be the kind of people that are going to want to work in a warehouse or driving a delivery truck or whatever else what other options are currently out there. So I think that's what we've got to focus on, and we've got to start to sell all of the positives around the support, the training, the opportunities to that group of people. And that's how I think we're going to find the numbers of people that the industry will need as we regroup. And I will be quiet in a moment, but one thing about Manchester, I know we've got Leeds and the other side, and I'm sure it's very similar over there, but we're an event city, right? So you get these super Saturdays in Manchester, particularly in September if Sash is running as well. You could have, football maybe going on. There could be something at one of the arenas, maybe two of the arenas in a couple of years' time. We could have something going on. And that is an incredible draw on the talent pool for that 1 or 2 days. But that's what makes Manchester work, because then when that happens, all of the bars, restaurants, retail shops in the city, they start to buzz as well. So there's great stories there. But, we absolutely can't underestimate the job of work that we've got to do between now and getting back to those days, because if we're just going to sit back and say, right, we need 15 people to come on Saturday, let's get it, I think we're going to be disappointed.
And can I just add something there about, absolutely. And I think that there's an important point about when when the government asks people to retrain into other forms of work. And I think that we need to change the perception, and and we have a responsibility, not only to change the perception of the public, but the perception of government and those in those positions about our value and the value and our impact on the wider economy. Because I think that is really one of the challenges about how we keep our employment workforce and that supply chain for many years in future. So I think we have a two-pronged approach that we need to do, and about the value basis, and one is on a governance and one is on a public side, and I think that's a really important aspect that we need to recognise.
Absolutely. I think, I guess just from where we stand as an organisation, we're certainly, we're talking to government and to like local authority quite a lot. It's an active conversation, that is happening. There's a lot of really clever people in the background just trying to gather all of the information. And again, events like today are very much part of that, where, we're not just talking to thought leaders, but we're also then gathering after this event, as many voices as possible to kind of like guide us. I think the other element that was really interesting was, I guess, that we should encourage everyone that's kind of starting to, or is looking forward to consuming everything that the gig economy and nighttime economy has to offer. There's a certain amount of patience, because then this goes to Sasha's point. Well, a lot of people have been out of work for a really long time, and then kind of this switch has happened recently, and things have opened up, and there's this expectation that everyone's just back to their 100%. So I think it's very multifaceted. But actually, what Sean has just talked about was a really great segue into the next question, which was around what can we actually do to move the industry forward. So we've spoken about talking to legislation and what we can do there. We've spoken about kind of encouragement, and I guess shining a light on those that can act as like inspiration and good examples of career paths going forward. Is there anything else that anyone would like to mention from this panel that would be a really vital part in terms of bringing us forward?
I can tell you what we're going to do in Greater Manchester, Sarah, is create a 3-year hospitality pledge. We haven't announced this yet, so I hope there's no press on this. And one of the things we are doing is, as you know, there are 10 boroughs in Greater Manchester, and I'm creating a team that will consist of a lawyer, licensing lawyer, someone from health and safety, someone from environmental health, and every single Thursday night we're going to be having drop-in surgeries in each of the different boroughs. And it's going to be totally free, where operators or employees can come along, talk to us, get advice, and we're just keen to help people get back on their feet. But I think it is really important, and Nathan just highlighted as well, this isn't just about operators, it's the people that make the machine work. With warehouse projects, I make it every single night. I like to know the name of most of the security, most of the cleaners. I make an effort to go and say hello to the bar staff. And I think it's so important. I think it's what makes a difference. We see so many operators or promoters, and I've seen it time and time again over 26 years, and post a picture of themselves drinking champagne backstage. And I just think, you don't get it, you don't understand it, that's not how you operate. And we come and go every single year. So, we have to bear more responsibility for the people that work for us.
Brilliant. Thank you for sharing that, Lorna.
And I think without a doubt, the workers now, they can be much more discerning. They can go and work anywhere else. They actually want more flexibility, but they demand to be treated properly. So, we've worked with people in the past who've said to me, I'm not going back to that venue. I don't like the way I was spoken to. I don't like the way I was treated. Actually, that becomes really difficult to argue against. So treating people properly should be at the forefront. I think it will absolutely make a difference to the job that those people then do for you as well. So it's everything from paying them properly, giving them proper breaks. So many of the breaks are not paid for. And I know from an economic point of view, life is really tough, and it's tougher than it's ever been. But it's about those little things that make a difference. It's about, people will say to me, oh, can I have them for a free trial shift? And you go, well, actually, that's just free labor. That's not about checking whether that person's right. You interview like everybody else does to check that person. So it's those things. It's about, as you say, it's about best practice. It's about being grown up. It's about taking some big decisions and actually saying, pledging, we're going to do it, and we're going to do it right, and we're going to treat people properly.
But I also think, Lorna, throw into that if you treat people with respect and you treat people properly and you pay people and you care for people, you get much better work out of them. They want to support the business and they're keen to support it.
And I think one of the big things in terms of the sort of events you put on, you want people that are passionate. You want people that want to be there, not that are looking at their clock to see what time they're finishing. And if you treat them properly, that everybody gets a better experience because of it.
Yeah.
Sean?
We like to try and use sort of advocacy and peer group kind of ambassadors in a way. And an example that springs to my mind, every Christmas we do a series of fairly large parties, 2,500 people in the venue, 26,000 people over 15 nights, something like that. So for us, actually quite a big do, and it requires a lot. It's a full 4-course meal followed by bar service followed by entertainment, so it's a full-on experience. But every year we kind of have to recruit and find, you know, the team leaders, if you like, the section leaders that are going to be our eyes on the ground when you're running such a large-scale operation. We do this, and we've got reasonably effective at spotting those individuals that come up for their first session with us, or working their first shift with us. And you can start to you almost have these spotters out there looking for the ones that are demonstrating the attributes that we're looking for in particular. And I remember one in particular, and we'd spotted somebody fairly early on, and who just joined as a regular shift worker working tables. And within, I think it was about something like 4 or 5 of the nights, I was just out the back with the kitchen team watching what was going on. And this same person was actually now running one of the passes inside the field kitchen that we built at the back of the venue. Right. So literally she'd gone from, I've just turned up for the first day of my job. And then within working 4 shifts, she's got herself into a role where she's controlling not just one team or 4 or 5 people, but a whole section. So potentially, I think it was something like 10 or 12 teams that was under her responsibility, working with the kitchen team and ensuring that everyone's getting it. And then what you do is you harness the trust and faith that we've placed in that individual to kind of, for want of a better word, spread the word. And then they become an ambassador to look for other people that have got similar kind of traits and the similar ambitions. And that I think has worked. But the way I think that it works really well is it's not people like me saying, come on, you should come and work in hospitality, it's really good. But it's actually the kids, the youngsters, or even the career change that are coming in and saying, actually, yeah, this really worked for me. You know, we did get the training, we did get the support. It is a great job. We really enjoy it. It works for me. And it gets spread on their WhatsApp groups and on their social networks. And all of a sudden you can start to find by osmosis your own team. And we find ourselves doing this every year as we go through the cycle, and we draw fairly extensively on the university community. And so of course we're hopeful that as we go into September, we start to see, you know, universities trading again at full pelt, to give us all, I think, a cohort of individuals that we can start to work with to become that next level of teams. And we've got people that did this 6, 7, 8, 9 years ago and are still with us today. Some of them employees, some of them working as still in the kind of casual or freelance area, but they know that every Christmas they're going to come to us. Every summer they're going to go and work in the summer festivals. You know, in spring they're going to do some of the spring race meetings, and they've got this jobbing career where they've built a reputation for themselves as being really good in their field, and then they can work their career around doing the things that suits them and their lifestyle. And this could even include, you know, well, pre-Brexit, it could include overseas opportunities as well, whether it's skiing in the winter and maybe overseas in some of the islands in the summer. But it just goes to show how the range of career opportunities and how you can build your career with this skill base that we've got can work for people. But yeah, I think to summarize, we're all going to be compelled to absolutely focus on the things that we may have taken for granted in years gone by, and making sure that we're offering best-in-class opportunities. And I know that, you know, with Sasha's leadership, the nighttime economy, particularly in Manchester, being such a big part of what we do, we're going to put a lot of effort into making sure that we do have those support mechanisms behind the rhetoric. And then it'll be down to good employers putting their money where their mouth is. And I don't mean that literally in terms of paying more money, but actually following up and following through with what their commitments are. And if we are going to solve transport for people so they don't have to get taxis, well, let's be serious about that. And Sasha's been a vocal campaigner for this one, because it's ridiculous to ask someone to come in and work for 3 or 4 hour shifts and then you spend the whole money on a taxi or an Uber to get home. Absolute bananas. So we've got to solve those things so that people can, so it isn't a pain and a difficulty to come and do the job, that actually there is an element of reward, fulfillment, as well as financial compensation for it as well.
Thank you so much for that. I think, the passion has come really through for each one of us, our panelists today. I think, from our perspective, obviously, I work with a lot of creatives that, are just at this cross section between their art and then the nighttime economy. And, there's a lot of conversations that are also guiding them towards the same efforts and same kind of goals that everyone's highlighted today. We have run out of time, so I'll probably just ask each one of you for just kind of final thoughts before we'll have a really very fitting health and mental well-being session right after this one. But before we jump into that one, Lorna, would you like to start just with any final thoughts around encouragement for people to look into the sector?
Yeah, I think hospitality will come back. It'll come back strong. It'll still be a really exciting place for people to work. And it's lovely to hear the panel be so positive about treating people as well as possible. So from my perspective, it's all on the up. Hospitality will be great, and I'm sure we'll get great people back into it.
Perfect. Thank you. Nathan?
The appetite for hospitality is never going to go away. The appetite for us to add colour into people's lives is not going to go away. We need to recognise about a career, as somebody said it earlier. Recognise, value these kind of areas, the person and the skills. And we are one of the industries that is unregulated. So we need to recognise that. And we need to recognise that we need to put our own levels of best practice in there and champion others that really well in our industry more. And we need to set those standards ourselves. And I think just when you're talking about putting forward, we need to use data a lot more, not to replace a person and not technological development to replace that interaction in hospitality that you get. But we need to use it for the advantage, essentially, to start in the arguments with perceptions in government and public about why value we have, who we are, what we represent, and how we can do it better.
Thank you so much. That was really well put. Sasha, do you want to share your
thoughts just to end it? I just want to tell you a very quick story about how you can progress within hospitality and just follow your dreams. So a lot of the people that work at the Warehouse Project, actually, obviously, to make an income, they also do it for the love of the music. It's not cheap. For an event, £35 to £38. If you want to go to 10 of those, it adds up. So they enjoy the music when they're there. Myself and Sam, my business partner, we both look at two different sides. Sam deals with all the bookings. He deals with all the lineups. I deal more with the logistics and things. And when we announced them this morning, something popped up on my timeline that I have retweeted, actually. And we had a member of bar staff who quickly became a supervisor called Pack about 5 years ago. And he posted a picture of himself with Johnny, who's one of the bar managers, winning Employee of the Week. He was given a bottle of whiskey or something. And that meant a lot to him. But what I didn't realise this morning was he also posted up this morning's advert for the opening night of the Warehouse Project. And he's playing as a DJ on the opening night of the Warehouse. And he did that off his own back. And I just think it's such a fantastic story. And I'm delighted for him. He wanted to be a DJ. He stuck with it, and in his words, it's happened.
Brilliant. That's really great encouragement. Thank you very much for sharing that. Sean, your final thoughts?
Well, that's a great story, and I can't top that. I think if I ever appeared as a DJ on any of our posters, I think my marketing team would be questioning whether I'd been, basically fiddling the marketing design or something like that to get my name on somewhere where it should be. But we've got to be the exemplar employers now. This is the time. I've spent during this pandemic. We've got a lot closer to government, and we've realised just how the knowledge gap has affected our ability to come through the different stages of the pandemic and get the support that we need. And others as well have been very vocal in this, and in particular, Sasha taking it almost to court to challenge some of the decisions that have been made, and it is because of a lack of understanding and a lack of appreciation of just how this industry is so diverse and so and so eclectic in terms of the makeup of it. And so I think I will spend a bit of my time working on how we can improve that to ensure that we improve that position going forward. Starting tomorrow, I've got a meeting with the minister at 9:40, by the way. But outside of that, we've got to be the exemplar employers. We've got to exhibit the traits and the features that we are espousing now, and we've got to come through on it. And the good news is, I think that you'll have to do that as an employer if you want to get and retain the people that you need to make your business successful. So in some ways, this is a great dawn for the career opportunities within our sector, and it will out the less convicted employers, or the employers with less conviction, if you like, and it will raise the employers that are taking it seriously. And I hope for whatever job I can do in my company and in Manchester, hopefully we'll be in that category.
Brilliant. That was I wouldn't have been able to put it better. I do think there is a very bright kind of like, I don't want to call it light at the end of the tunnel. Let's call it a beacon of hope for lasting change and for real improvement of this industry that we're all really valuing and really, really heavily invested in. So thank you very much for today. Thank you for everyone that's joined us here today. And I'm hoping to welcome as many of the viewers that have been with us today tomorrow again.